Coverage, the premier NFL podcast of the Gin Sports Network. I'm John J. II. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Wednesday, the 20th of November, 2024. Boy, do we have a show in store for you, and we're going to bring it to you right now. Listen, guys, the NFL season has gone by quickly, and we know that. I don't have to tell you that. You know that. You can tell a lot of you guys, a lot of my viewers, the guys, people that talk to me, guys and gals, they're Lions fans, and I'm happy for them. I really am. I want to see them prosper. I want to see them do well, and I will be giving my Super Bowl projection tonight, actually. A little bit early, a little bit of a spoiler, but I'm going to give you the game. Not going to tell you who's going to win or who I think is going to win or any of that. If you know me at all, you might have an inclination of who I'm going to lean towards in this matchup, but we'll leave that for debate once I tell you guys. So first, we got to take care of a little bit of housekeeping business. So over the weekend, the Turkey Bowl 4 took place, and obviously Team Bink and Team Moneric clashed again, and it was a battle of the Blue Bloods. And let's just say we didn't come out on top, but that's okay because it was a really hard-fought game. And I'm really happy for Robert Rocco and Tony Moneric for pulling out the victory, pulling out the dub, and hoisting out the platinum platter after everything was said and done. Had a newcomer to the Gin Pros Turkey Bowl, Larry Gardner, hell of a guy, really just a great guy. He's a hoot. And I'm looking forward to seeing him actually, hopefully, on this show at some point, one of our shows. And we're going to bring him in as something. We're gonna find a spot for him. But this is the thing: if you take part in the Turkey Bowl, it's a passion project of mine. It's something that we've been doing. This is obviously the 4th iteration. It's got the 5th one coming up. So it's something we've been doing for some time now. You are one of us. If you take part of the Turkey Bowl, you are part of the GSN, the Gin community. After that, so that has to be known. That has to be well known. And I want him to help out, if nothing more, help us out, and he will with the future Turkey Bowl events. Talk about a spring game. Sam Vitale and I, we've been hinting towards it. So there's a lot of things in the works and a lot to talk about, a lot to consider. But I love this event. It's one of the events that's really near and dear to my heart. Very similar to the golf outing, the GSN Challenge, and the Corona Cup. Obviously, those are the top 3: the Turkey Bowl, the GSN Challenge, and the Corona Cup. All the top 3 in my heart, top 3 on my top 3 list. And they're the top 3 events of Gin, if you really want to break it down that way. So a lot more coming on that front, but hats off to Team Moneric. Let's just break down the game real quick a little bit. So if you didn't see the video, navigate over to our YouTube channel. Find it at the bottom of this podcast in the description. Look at it afterwards, whatever you got to do. It's everywhere. It's on all of our social media sites. But we got down early because we had some bad turnovers. Terrible turnover. One of them was my fault. One I got to put on Larry just because it was a tip drill pick 6 for Tony Moneric, and the other one was a scoop and score by Robert Rocco. Shitty. It was just a shitty lateral. I take the blame for that one. Bad lateral led to a scoop and score, and we were right on our own 6-yard line. Probably wasn't the best play in the book anyway. So maybe put a little bit of blame on Sammy Vitale too. But nevertheless, took that one on the nose and incurred an uphill battle pretty early on. But we fought like hell, man. Fought like hell. We almost came back. Didn't capitalize on a pick 6. Then we would have got the ball back after halftime. We just didn't capitalize when we had to get back in the game, force a overtime situation. Just didn't happen that way. So it is what it is, but we got to move forward, onward, and upward, just like we do everything else. So like I said, again, hats off to Team Moneric winning 49-35 in the Turkey Bowl 4. All right, now we got to talk about Aaron Rodgers. Is Aaron Rodgers cooked? I feel like we just talked about speaker there, so we're just going to go this way. Is Aaron Rodgers cooked? And the question has been begged. The question has been asked, and I refrained on answering the question at all just because I thought it was too soon, and we were kind of looking at some turnover. We were looking at some different things in the Jets camp. But looking at some breaking news, it appears to me that the Jets have fired their general manager, Joe Douglas, after 6 seasons with the New York Jets. And the Jets are sitting at 3-8 right now. And a lot of major people, there's this Green Bay Packers outlet that I follow. It's actually the Acme Packing Company. It's an outlet of SB Nation. They're basically, and they follow Aaron Rodgers because he was a large part of their franchise for many years, as you very well know. And they're basically saying this guy is cooked. This guy is done. He's throwing into space. He's, not allowing his receivers to finish running the routes, and he's just not really the guy anymore. And analysts have said, people have came out and said, hey, if a new GM comes in, if a guy comes in to replace Robert Saleh, which still hasn't happened yet, they're still dealing with interim head coach, they're going to have to get rid of Aaron Rodgers upon arrival. And that's kind of concerning, especially because he just showed up on the Pat McAfee show saying, yeah, I'm going to come back in 2025 and everything's going to be honky-dory. That's not looking like that's going to be the case anymore. You look at a new regime in New York, they really haven't even fulfilled the new regime with Aaron Rodgers yet. And basically the entire Green Bay Packers offense, you haven't seen that really grow and develop yet. But now you're already talking about a regime change, and you're seeing a lot of turnover with the head coach with Robert Saleh and now the GM, Joe Douglas. So listen, it's bedlam in New York right now, talking about the New York Jets, and that's putting it lightly. I'm not sugarcoating nothing, but I'm not trying to make it more than it is or anything like that. But they're not in good shape right now, and they're trying to figure it out, essentially. So you look at the regime change. The current regime hasn't really seen fruition yet, in my opinion, and I don't really see where it's going to go. And I don't really see any growth, any room for growth, unless you get rid of Aaron Rodgers. And that's kind of a sad story for Aaron Rodgers fans, maybe even New York Jets fans, people that saw the promise with Aaron Rodgers being the guy in New York, bringing Davante Adams along. Obviously, you got Adam Lazard, and you got some other guys from Green Bay as well that they've kind of tried to rebuild Green Bay as much as they could with the old heads. They really just need to bring Randall Cobb over there, and they're going to be all set. But I think it's beyond that. If you can't get the job done with Davante Adams and Aaron Rodgers, you can't block for the guy. It was also mentioned on one of these shows I watch. I watch a lot of these shows. I get some anecdotal evidence from these guys. The guys that follow it maybe a little bit more than I do, and I call it from a bird's eye view, as you guys know. So I call it how I see it. That's how I look at it. And if it's kind of hand in hand with what I'm seeing, then I know that I'm kind of on the right track. So basically, they're saying Aaron Rodgers doesn't want to get hit. They're saying that he's old. They're saying that he's the grandfather of the NFL. And that's what I've been saying for a long time on this show and other shows. We're talking about how Aaron Rodgers does not want to get hit. We know he doesn't want to get hit. Davante Adams doesn't want to get hit. Shit, if Davante Adams doesn't want to get hit, sure as hell Aaron Rodgers don't want to get hit either. Okay, now Davante Adams left the Las Vegas Raiders because he didn't want to get hit. Now he can't even get the ball because he can't finish running the route. So he has no opportunity to get hit. Or maybe he's going to start getting hit. I don't know. It's shambles in New York right now for the New York Jets. Where does their future lie? Only God knows. That brings us on to our next star-studded topic, which is none other than the Dallas Cowboys. Now, what did I say? I don't think it was last year, but it was probably early this year. It was right around the time when I was posting the memes of Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys, and it's Dak Prescott looking up at the Jumbotron at AT&T Stadium, and it says, what? It says the Dallas Cowboys are eliminated from playoff contention. Yeah, well, fast forward now to week 12. Where are we? The Cowboys are in shambles, probably even worse than the New York Jets, probably way worse, actually. And Dak Prescott is injured. Jerry Jones is scratching his head. Cooper Rush is getting sacked, and they can't figure it out. They're bringing out third stringers to play and fulfill the role of quarterback. And Mike McCarthy is on the hot seat, if he has ever been. His butt is on fire. Mike McCarthy's butt is on fire right now. And there's been rumors. Real quick, I got to say this. The Dallas Cowboys are the worst team in the NFL. By far. This isn't even close. Okay, you want to go back and talk about the 0-16 Detroit Lions? This team is way worse than that. Okay, that's saying a lot. That's saying a lot, especially coming from me. But this brings in another topic, which we've also talked about. We've seen him with the Peyton brothers, Eli and Peyton, and they're watching the game on ESPN2. It's basically the Peyton cast, the Manning cast. And Belichick has been known to tune in and commentate from time to time. Bill Belichick has re-entered the circle where we thought he was going to kind of take over for Mike McCarthy in Dallas last year. Now it's really looking like it's going to be the case. He has supposedly been in conversations with Jerry Jones, and it's possible. It's possible. I mean, he wants to come back into coaching. He said it publicly, and I think he's going to want to make a run, and he's going to go for a team that he can rebuild from. And you want to look at America's team, you can say it's the Dallas Cowboys, but I think for a long time in our history, and you can look at their jerseys, look at their helmets, and it really speaks and breathes America, and that is the New England Patriots, where our great country was formed, where our founders drafted the Declaration of Independence in New England, right? So you want to talk about America's team, let's start with New England and the Tom Brady, Bill Belichick era. Okay, I don't want to hear nothing about Dallas. They haven't even made a splash since the good old days of Emmitt Smith, and Troy Aikman. So listen, I don't want to hear it. People are saying Dallas is still America's team. I don't buy it. I don't see it. I really don't see it. And we can never forget last year, December 30th, where I trolled the entire universe wearing a Dallas Cowboys crew neck, and I basically lit Facebook on fire. It was ablaze. It was like a forest fire. I thought it was in Northern California, and it was a sight to be seen. It really was. And they made a run, and they actually had a team. They actually made it look like they were going to build something with that team. It didn't wind up panning that way for them, and it's just not good. Just not good. Not good football. Not good television. So that is what it is. Talking about something, let's just look at the NFL power rankings real quick. So as it stands, we'll just look at the top ranking regional leaders, okay? We'll start with the AFC East. Buffalo Bills in number 1, AFC West, Chiefs, AFC North. You got the Steelers, AFC South. You got the Texans. Going over to the NFC. In the NFC East, you got the Eagles. NFC West, you got the Arizona Cardinals. NFC North, obviously, you got the Detroit Lions, with the Vikings in a close second, actually, 8-2. With the Packers not far behind them, 7-3. So you're not really seeing that gap in the NFC North like you're expecting to at this point of the season, especially with the Detroit Lions being 9-1. Then you go to the NFC South. The Falcons of Atlanta are 6-5. Leading the NFC South. That's always kind of just the barn burner garbage region, where you can be 6-5 and leading your region. Really kind of crazy. You're just talking about the toilet bowl of regions, not only in the NFL, well, not only in the NFC, but in the NFL. So those are your leaders. But what is notable here is that the Detroit Lions have now surpassed the Kansas City Chiefs for that number 1 spot. And that's really something, especially looking back and seeing that, yes, they lost to another regional leader in the Buffalo Bills, my Buffalo Bills. Nonetheless, it was, you look at strength of schedule, look at teams that you played, things of that nature, but you're sitting at 9-1, both of these teams. So it's like you can't really pick the two apart, but based on how they've been playing and how their schedule is basically laid out for the rest of the season, that's how they come to that rankings judgment. So Lions are number 1 right now in the NFL as far as power rankings. The Chiefs are behind them at number 2, and then you probably got Minnesota, or you might have the Ravens behind them somewhere. The Steelers are 8-2, which they're rolling as well. So you put them in the top 5 as well. So it's just really it's really one of those things. They're rolling. Mike Tomlin's getting the job done. It's nice to see the Steelers do good. I'm not a Steelers fan. My cousin Lucas is a big Steelers fan. And I don't mind seeing him do well. I'm not a big terrible towel guy. But I'm a Russell Wilson fan. I like Justin Fields. And I like Mike Tomlin. I think he's done a lot for the league, and he's done a lot for the game of football. And I like him as a coach. I like him on the sidelines. I like his style of coaching. He's a no bullshit guy. And his track record speaks for himself, especially in the Ben Roethlisberger era. They've had some rough patches. They've navigated rough waters, and they've made it to now where they're sitting at 8-2 in the AFC North, leading above the Ravens with a big win over the Ravens, winning 18-16 last week. And wow, what a win that was. And I don't know who it was. But someone in our Discord actually called that game for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and they're looking like they're rolling right now. If we just want to look at a stat sheet for the Pittsburgh Steelers real quick. You're looking at Russell Wilson, 23 for 36, 205 yards, 1 interception. Najee Harris, 18 carries for 63 yards. George Pickens, 8 receptions, 89 yards. Now, that might not seem too star-studded, but when we're looking at it and we're thinking about it and we're looking at that final score of 18-16 winning against the Baltimore Ravens, which they've been rolling as of late, that's pretty significant. It's pretty significant. So I'm really happy with what I'm seeing from the Pittsburgh Steelers, and they got a path. They got a path to get there. I guess as far as the AFC goes, do they have a chance? Do they have a chance? I think they do. I think they make a playoff run. Just looking how it's going right now, I think they do make a playoff run. They got a big game tomorrow night on Thursday Night Football against the Cleveland Browns. That's going to be a good game. Then they got the Bengals. Then they got the Browns again. And we all know that's a rivalry game. Okay, if you guys didn't know, the Browns and the Steelers is a big rivalry game. Okay, so they got the Browns again on December 8th. Then they got the Eagles. It's going to be a tough test. Then they got the Ravens again. Then they got the Chiefs. Then they got the Bengals. I think they beat the Bengals both times. Now, the Bengals, they're just not getting it done. They're not finishing games. Let's just be honest. They're not finishing games. And Slim Shiesty is he's playing well. He's playing well, but he's not playing well enough, and his team isn't supporting his ability to play quarterback to win games and finish games out. So I got to put a little bit on Slim Shiesty, Joe Burrow, but I also got to put on the rest of the Bengals team. So like I said about the Steelers, they got a path, they got a way, they got a route. But any one of those teams, you got to face the Eagles. That's going to be a tough test. I don't know if you beat the Ravens twice. It's going to be another tall task. And then you got the Chiefs on Christmas Day. So you got a path, but it's not an easy path. It's not an easy path. But definitely have potential to lead and be in position to play in that AFC Championship once the time comes. But I think, and I'm going to make a bold projection here, but I think it's going to be my Buffalo Bills playing the Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC Championship. And that's just how I see it. That's how I see it. You want to look at the NFC. It's a little bit of a different picture, per se. Now, you look at the juggernauts in the NFC. Now, the NFC West is another one of those garbage regions. You got the Cardinals leading at 6-4. If you're leading a region at 6-4, that's not good. That's not good. That means you're not playing well, but you're playing just slightly better than everyone else in your region. So for that reason, you're going to be leading in your region. I think the tallest task for the Detroit Lions in the NFC is going to be the Eagles. Okay, it's going to be the Eagles. The Vikings are going to be your one team to beat in the NFC North. You already got that done. The Packers are coming back for some more blood. So there's some unfinished business in a lot of those areas. So you guys want to know my Super Bowl projection picks? Okay. So I posted a bracket on my story the other day, and it was a little bit telling. And if you saw that, you caught a glimpse of it, you might have an idea of what I'm going to say next. And that is, I got the Buffalo Bills facing off against the Detroit Lions in the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl. Let that sink in. Let that marinate for a second. Okay, obviously the Bills have to beat the Chiefs in the AFC Championship if they do play the Chiefs. It could be the Steelers too. You got teams that could come out of the woodwork. I don't really see that happening, but looking at it from here on out, just with what we got to work with, that's what it's looking like. And you got to beat the Chiefs. You got to beat the Chiefs. You got to beat the Steelers. But the Bills are elated right now. They're in a spot right now where they have never been. That's coming off a win against the Chiefs. That's feeling really good about your offense. That's feeling really confident if you're Sean McDermott about where your team is at, about where your defense is at. And you're talking about Money Mahomes, where let's be honest, this is Money Mahomes with with the official, and they're swapping jerseys. Okay, you might think it's funny. You might think it's worth laughing at it. This is not funny right here. Okay, and I like Pat Mahomes. I like him. I think he's a good guy. I think he's a stand-up guy. Tolbert, that's Torbert right there, Torbert. But there's been some allegations, and obviously, if you're the best, if you're one of the best, if you're sitting at the top going back to back for Super Bowls, people are going to have your number. Okay, and that's kind of how it's been for the Kansas City Chiefs. People have been preying on their downfall, pulling T Grizzlies out on the Kansas City Chiefs. And for good reason. They deserve it. They deserve it. So the fact that people are pulling out T Grizzlies out on the Kansas City Chiefs, it should be no surprise. Should be no surprise. Okay, that's just one of those things you got to deal with. If you're Pat Mahomes, if you're the Kansas City Chiefs, if you're Taylor Swift, if you're Travis Kelce, okay? If you're Andy Reid, you got to deal with it. You got to roll with the punches. So just like every other year, the best team will win. We can kind of look at it, make projections. We might be talking out of our ass a little bit, but that's what we do. That's what we do. We make projections. We make guesses. We make educated guesses, and then we see what we were right about, see what we were wrong about. It's kind of the nature of the beast, and that's what makes it fun. That's what makes it fun. That's really all I got, guys. That's really all I got. Big news out of the Detroit Lions camp. Terrible news for the defense. Alex Anzalone is on IR. Probably going to be out for 6 to 8 weeks with a broken forearm early against the Jacksonville Jaguars. And they rolled against the Jacksonville Jaguars, did I mention? And you want to talk about a team that's just bullying teams. That's the Detroit Lions. That is the Detroit Lions, baby. Dan Campbell is serving up some kneecap soup, and it's hot and it's ready. And I don't know if it tastes good, but you got to ask Jacksonville, and you got to ask the Texans. I guess you can ask the Texans. Ask the Packers. Ask the Titans. Ask the Cowboys. They know. They've had their helping of Campbell's kneecap soup, and they might be coming back for seconds, some of these teams. I mean, you want to talk about some bet slips that I've seen over the weekend, just same game parlays, taking the Detroit Lions and taking all these guys to score touchdowns and hit yardage thresholds and passing touchdowns and overs and things like that. Everything was hitting. If you did a same game parlay on the Detroit Lions game when they played Jacksonville this past weekend, you could have closed your eyes, picked all kinds of props, threw whatever amount of money you wanted on it, went to bed or watched the game, whatever you want to do, throw your phone away. Don't just put it on airplane mode. Don't even look at it. You look back at your account after the game and you're like, holy shit, we hit. And it was effortless. You could have done that for the Titans game as well. And it's they're not bullying every team. They're kind of taking their time. They're playing with their food a little bit. But you look at some of these wins, they got some good wins. They got some really good wins, especially NFC North wins, beating the Vikings by 2 points, beating the Packers by 10. I mean, talk about Jake Bates against the Texans winning by a field goal. I mean, you want to talk about the games that the Detroit Lions are winning right now. You go back a year, you go back a couple years. Let's go back a couple years, maybe 3 years. Maybe when I was even watching them back 5 years ago, 6 years ago. And I was rooting for them. I was sitting on the edge of my seat watching the Detroit Lions. I couldn't wait back during the Jim Schwartz era. And even after that. But watching them at the edge of my seat and get my heart broken every single week. And it was tough to do. I had to stop. But if you're watching these guys now, They're winning the games now that they would have definitely lost back then. The 50-50 game, maybe even the 25 for the Lions to 75 their opponent. Those games, they're winning those games. They're winning the 25-75 games. They're winning the 50. They're definitely winning the 50-50 games. And they're capitalizing on opportunities, whereas before they did not. Okay, and you look at the game against the Bucs back on September 15th. That was in hindsight, that was a great loss for him. And I said it was. I could pull the clip up. I said it was a good loss because you incurred that loss early enough where you can bounce back, you can swallow your pride, and you can say, hey, that's what a loss in the regular season feels like. After the season, after the run we had last year, that's what a loss feels like. And that's a step in the wrong direction. Now, we don't want to take many steps in that direction because the more steps we take in that direction, the less probability we have of making it to the playoffs and possibly the Super Bowl. Not only this season, but in any future seasons. So taking that loss, taking it on the chin early was good for him. I think it really springboarded the Detroit Lions into the rest of their season, and basically obviously they've won out since then. And looking at Week 12, feeling pretty good if you're a Detroit Lions fan, and a lot to be happy about, a lot to keep your head up about. Obviously, don't want to incur any losses going forward if you don't have to. But just looking forward, you got the Colts, you got the Bears, you got the Packers, you got the Bills on December 15th, which that could be a Super Bowl preview, people. That could be a Super Bowl preview. It's a 4:25 game. Make sure you're strapped in watching that game. You got the Bears again on the 22nd. Then the 30th, you got a game with the 49ers, which are probably going to be pretty healed up by then. They're a little bit banged up right now, but you're going to be playing a decent 49ers team come the 30th of December. And then you got the Vikings to finish off your season. That could be a tough game too. That could be a position game where you're looking at buys and looking at other things if you're a conference leader. So then you got conference championship, and then you got things of that nature. So a lot to look forward to, a lot to think about. But it's looking pretty damn good for the Detroit Lions. A couple of these games are iffy. A couple of these games are maybe not set in stone. But if you're a Detroit Lions fan, you're feeling pretty good about probably 60% of these games. Feeling really good about them. Feel great about the Colts. Feel great about the Bears. You feel pretty good about the Packers, even though they're making a run. I'd feel pretty shitty about the Bills if I was a Lions fan. It's going to be a tough game. Be a tough game. Not saying they can't win. It's going to be a tough game. It'll be a gritty game. Then you got the Bears again. Tough to beat a team twice, especially in your region. Then you got the 49ers. That's an iffy game. Feel decent about it. And then depending on how those games go, I'm saying the Bills and the 49ers game, feeling good about those games, you come out maybe 1 out of the 2. Then you probably feel pretty good about finishing up with the Vikings going into the playoffs. So a lot to think about, a lot to look forward to. But we just got to wait and see, and we're here for every second of it. So I'll leave you guys with that. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure to check out all of our social media accounts in the bottom of this podcast in the description. Check out our link tree. Check out our website, ginsportsnetwork.com. Go watch the Turkey Bowl video if you haven't already. It's on our YouTube channel, and you're going to enjoy it. You'll have fun watching it. And we'll see you here next time. For now, I'm John J. II with Double Coverage, the premier NFL podcast of the Gin Sports Network. Have a great night.